All right, sounds good. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's an honor to lead such an amazing panel with some very interesting guys doing a lot of cool stuff. I'm really excited about it. We'll go ahead and do a round of introductions. I'll get it kicked off. My name is Hector Hernandez. Got started in real estate right before the 2008 crash. So Sal, I didn't make it to your 90s crash, but I did make it to the 2008, and I learned a ton from it. That helped me escape the crazy boom that happened in 21 with the negative leverage. So that was extremely helpful, and education-wise, we focused mainly on small multifamily and single family throughout the history. These days, I predominantly identify as a real estate fund manager, but we also operate a few real estate service companies, brokerage, property management, and that sort of stuff. But that's enough about me. Let's get the panel introduced. Avi, if you would.
Sure. My name is IvyFON. Good afternoon. My name is IvyFON. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Managerial Brothers. We're essentially a third generation family office. We have 3 locations: LA, New York, and Miami. We own and manage a little over 2 billion AUM, multifamily across selective states and primary secondary markets. Thank you.
Perfect. Ralph, if you would.
Yes, hello, my name is Ralph Winter. I'm from Germany. We moved over to Miami now 9 years ago. So we invest our own money, our own family money, into real estate here in the US, also in Europe. We did a lot in Europe in student housing and multifamily, so we continue here. Student housing, innovative living, and now start also to invest with like-minded families here in Miami. So we're here in Miami and we have an office in New York.
Awesome. You want to take it away, Cody?
I'm Cody Chandra, the founder and president of Healing Realty Trust. We're a data-driven healthcare real estate investment company that primarily invests in outpatient centers with tenanted properties or major healthcare systems.
Hi there, my name is Stan Ng from Skyking Capital. Passions in tech and housing. I'll do version 1. I was a tech entrepreneur, started a handful of companies, some comfortable exits. Version 2, VCP manager, primarily in China, about 450 million. And then version 3, been pursuing the passions in housing, so done quite a bit of workforce housing, low 8 figures in the past 5 years as a GP, a few more thousand as an LP. But this year have pivoted towards really leveraging technologies, specifically AI, that we've developed in-house to make property management and real estate more efficient. So raising 100 million to acquire property management companies to make them more productive than they are today.
Awesome. We're definitely going to dig into AI and the tech side of things. But before we go do that, can you each share what your outlook is for 2025 specifically to your industry and what you guys are working on? And you could just keep going, Sam.
Yeah, so we've been divesting and asset managing. So we haven't purchased anything in the past 18 months. We had hoped that markets would be better, but as been discussed in the past 2 days, it has not. So again, for our group, the focus has been, we built a, oops.
They've lowered the volume a little bit.
You still hear?
Yeah.
So focus has been building a very amazing technology team, and over the past 2 years or so, we have developed a handful of actual applications that make the whole real estate management process a lot more efficient, for which we spun off into companies that have started to get funding separately. Initially, we guinea pig our own assets, our own property management companies, and as these products, technologies mature, we are starting to service third parties as well. So again, the focus sector is really seeing the values on some of these applications and building this out having a network of property management companies, really seeing how the assets perform, and when the markets turn, being sort of having a good inside view of which ones to invest in.
So if we could dig into that a little bit, are you providing the back-end software for the property management companies, or are you looking to acquire them and bring them into your ecosystem?
Yeah, so what we found is that it's excruciatingly difficult to implement technologies with property management companies. And so, yes. So one of my chief product officers was in-house head of AI and digital transformation for a Fortune 100 technology company. She built a smart home project and tried to leverage the billions to penetrate real estate and PM. She gave up. And when she discovered that we were actually PMing and acquiring PMs as distribution, and we're also on the ownership side, she joined us because she feels that that distribution part is so important. And think about it, there's probably 1 million AI startups every year. Most kids don't understand the product or the real estate. And so having an initial in-house where we R&D and develop the products, and we can actually use and see KPIs, makes it super cheap to lower the customer acquisition cost. So again, we're doubling down on that and trying to figure out more production.
Awesome, yeah, and with your background in real estate, I can see that expedited so much faster than someone who doesn't have the background in real estate.
Sure.
What about you, Cody? What do you see in 2025?
He hit it nail on the head. Yeah, data is going to continue to drive, especially from our point of view, the purchasing. A lot of the markets that we're in, we're never buying real estate in Miami, New York, San Francisco. The implementation from the local boots on the ground has been very difficult. Even if they're managing centers that are anchored by United or Tenant or Cardinal, the property managers at those smaller outpatient types of facilities are very tough to bring on board with new technologies. So from our point of view, we want to use the data that we aggregate in-house. And then our modeling software is telling us where the consumer is coming from and going to. So we can track growing markets that are becoming less stable over time, and that drives our purchasing power. So being able to not only aggregate the data, but also put it inside of a set of data points that's actually usable and functionality is key, I think is going to be the story of not just this year, but the next several.
Awesome, I love it. What about you, Avi?
Yeah, so we think 2025 is gonna be all the distressed assets that are gonna be coming to the market. If you look at 2024, 2023, the rate hikes were just getting crazy. They did 11 rate hikes in the past 3 years. And we're multifamily players, so even though they did 3 rate decreases, we don't feel that that's gonna be enough to really save all the guys that did all these crazy bridge loans. If you look at Miami in particular, there were deals being traded at 2.5 caps when the interest rate was like 3%. So today, the floating debt, there's a lot of workouts being done on the side, and the past few deals we've done have been distressed assets, where you can really find things at a discount. Now, I think 2025, with the rate decreases, the cap rates are gonna finally be compressed. And I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to invest, especially there's been a lot of dry powder, is sitting on the side with institutions, family office, and we're very bullish on 2025.
Awesome. Ralph, what do you see coming out of the pipeline?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, of course, distress is one thing, but I think we all have to think about is, I mean, real estate was or is and was always linked to whole rate environment and how that looks. And I think we should be a little bit more trying to be independent from that. I mean, we're looking for more kind of, I think AI technology is one thing, but the other thing is kind of think about what you're doing, who does that benefit to? So what we are doing is, for instance, because we plan for the second generation, for the family, we're going to keep the assets over years, some of them maybe even longer. And what we are targeting is, we made a big research on how did people live 20 years ago, how do they live today, and how will they live in 20 years from now. There's a pretty interesting thing what came out of that, because if you think about the generation shift is now that we are targeting mostly the younger generation, which is Generation Z and millennials. If you see that this group in America is approximately 160 million people, you have to think about what's going to change if this will be the main consumption of the future, what they really want to. And we are digging deep into that. Let's say in my generation, we were more focusing on a house, a car, whatever. Today they share, they're not really interested in maybe buying a house or having real estate. They're going to move 15 plus times during their lives. And we're trying to kind of figure out how these buildings look like. So a lot of amenities, but not only amenities, because here in Miami, I think it's the city where we have the largest amenities ever. But also kind of think about it. In this generation, the 20-year plus year old, they are so connected by social media, but they have, on the other hand, the highest loneliness factor today, which means that's a lot of depression, that's a lot of things. So we are trying to kind of give them an advantage if they move and kind of bring them into the buildings and activate the buildings by creating community. And I think that's a big point, because that also then linked into lower occupancy and higher rents.
That's a very interesting look on generational changes, Ralph. So I want to start on that topic. That was actually one of the topics I wanted to discuss. We'll definitely get to the data stuff, but on the generational, you're seeing with that younger generation, they're shifting more to micro living, I believe. What about the older gen? Are you guys touching that at all? Is anyone on the panel touching something specifically for the so-called silver tsunami?
No, we're not touching that, but this is, I was always looking into that, but honestly, I said, in Europe, it's a pretty tough environment. There's a lot about operation, regulatory issues. But it's the same thing, and by the way, if you call it now, how do we call it? You call it senior living, golden living, whatever. So the question is, there's definitely a big niche of things which you can do, but not in this kind of old style of senior living, what do you think? When does a senior start? Is it at 60 or 65 or 70, that's also, and I think that has also, this is a lot to do, and you see how the world changes. We can discuss remote work, we can discuss whatever, people have their opinions on that, but there will be no world without remote work. And if you're not going that path, you will lose a lot of tenants and talent. And this is something you have to maybe integrate that in your housing, or you have to, because the worst thing is when you have people working remotely, but they don't have the space, and they don't have, you hear a lot of background noises, you hear kids and dogs and whatever running around. This is not how it works. We have to think about that. And I think we should learn out of what we've seen in the office sector, because you've seen what happened with the offices. Offices built 10, 15 years ago are kind of done today, and new office concepts are very, very, very much, they have very high occupancy. There is no, in the top office segment, for instance, here in Miami, there's no crisis. You're not finding an office. It's the same in Paris, the same out of Madrid, the same all over. So we have to think, I think real estate is a little bit of kind of an industry which is not very innovative in a certain way. We have multifamily, we have student housing, we did that for decades, for years. But now I think there's a time, and this is also pushed by technology, of course. We have to think that, what does that mean? Because think about it. the generation set in 2030 will have more consumptions power than the generation of millennials. We talk about approximately 40 trillion of consumption power. That is a lot of money. If you want to have a piece of that, we have to think about it, how can we satisfy their needs?
What do they want? Yeah. Very smart. Any thoughts on that for the rest of the panel?
Yeah, we do watch the aging sector. So our data set, we can filter by age range. The two most important population sectors are, number one, the younger generation that he spoke of, because they're the ones that are having families now. That drives healthcare, and then actually 58 to 90, they account for 74% of all Medicare and Medicaid spending currently. So when we're targeting facilities, we want to identify the population centers that meet that threshold of the younger generation still being in the community, but also the older generation that is accessing these healthcare services in that community.
Any comments on that, Sam?
We're not actually chasing it, but I do know from personal experience, there is a serious lack of aging homes catering towards Asians. For example, my dad can't go into a normal, an American, from a diet standpoint, and I know of certain projects in the West Coast and East Coast, if it's catered towards Koreans or Chinese, those are oversubscribed and long waiting lists and super expensive. So if anyone's doing those, we could go GP, but I don't want to be there.
All right, interesting. Ivy, do you have anything to share there, or do we move on to the next topic?
I would say in concurrence to what he's saying, I totally agree. We're looking at deals now where we have the opportunity to build like a WeWork style space within our multifamily. Miami, I think is doing great as far as office, but other primary, secondary markets, there is a niche for that. And, you know, if you can get that upside and provide those amenities, where a lot of these millennials can work from home, I think they do very well.
Absolutely, I agree with that. All right, so let's get a little bit into big data. It's an AI. It's been mentioned a lot of times here today, and particularly Cody and Sam are doing some really cool stuff when it comes to data aggregation and AI. I'd love to have you guys share a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, it's difficult. That's one. So we spent years trying to figure out how to get the data, and we started with trying to build some broad products, and we've now evolved to very specific applications. So one application that we're launching in a few weeks is essentially a way to automate marketing and social catered towards specific real estate assets and content. So if you own multifamily, especially B and C workforce housing, your property manager does not know how to do social. You don't have a budget for it. If you were to hire an agency, it would be $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 for almost not much content. Yeah, so the product that we have version 1, version 2 is launching is essentially a 200 a month product that automates social and branding for a, let's say, a specific apartment community. That will give you a couple of posts a day. So it will be a fraction of what a PM could do, or what an owner can pay for. We have another product that's live. In fact, the CEO is floating around that uses a portfolio of agents to automate leasing. So if a PM buys a Zillow Platinum, you get 100 leads a day. It comes in email format, 4 or 5 formats, WhatsApp, phone call, messages. Believe it or not, there isn't really an agent or automation yet to qualify those leads. So one of my PM clients, also actually invested in us, asked his secretary to input the data manually into it, and then it has an FAQ system. Our product now can basically, doesn't really matter which iOS comes from, what format, can automatically respond immediately and qualify, let's say, 80% of the leads, get them to book tours or sales, multiple languages 24/7. So just 2 examples of a number that we built or the building that are different pieces of the PM process. And the idea is that if we launch 5 or 6 more next year, if 2 or 3 work, they have already helped the PMs and managers become more productive. That data will all be aggregated. And our long-term view is every real estate asset from single family to this building will one day be connected to one central database. And like the iPhone, the AI will give you a preset of agents. It could be a debt collection agent, it could be a social media agent, it could be, you're doing something here, right? And then the AI would allow you to customize certain agents. As an example, I'm doing a bunch of refis right now. All 6 banks want the exact same data in the PFS, in the financial statement, right? But they won't take my format. They insist that we put it in their format, right? I don't want my secretary to see my PFS. So I can see uploading my PFS to this PFS agent, and then having the secretary scan in the PDFs of the formats they want, and then the agent should be able to populate it without revealing the confidential. Just a lot of examples of these things that are already happening. Another portfolio company that we have invested in are now, it's called Cashflow Portal. It's a top syndication software. And they're now using AI to automate monthly reports. Okay, so the idea is we're not trying to produce all in one, we're trying to produce a number of companies. Some of that hit, all the data would eventually hit into one central database. Once the data is there, then it becomes much easier to create more agents.
That's awesome.
We're using data for 2 primary purposes. On the front end, once our financial due diligence process is completed, then we run a wide series of performance indicators for any market that we're going inside of. So, for example, the building that we just purchased in El Paso, we take the data from the top hospital through time and spatial data. So we can identify specifically how many patients are visiting that facility a year, what is the population annual growth rate, is the market increasing on a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year basis? And then after that data is completed, then we can overlay metadata from your cell phone. So now I can identify specifically where the people are coming from before they hit our facility, and then where they're going to afterwards. So for example, with the PM side, as they're out marketing a facility, as one of our leases were to come up, they can specifically talk to any doctor and say, look, at not only is this building, visiting this many people a day and seeing this demographic, this age group, but now we can show you exactly where you should be putting your marketing material. For example, 8% of the people that come into the building that we just bought go to the fountain shops right afterwards. Might be a great place to place an ad for your practice there. So the data is super wide ranging. It just depends specifically on what we're using it for, whether it's from a due diligence standpoint or whether it's from a marketing standpoint. But we aggregate over 80 million pieces of data monthly, from Medicare, NIH, CDC, WHO, consumer data, you name it, literally gets thrown into the system, and then we print out reports for the specific use of what we're purchasing.
I love both of those tools because I think it was Peter that shared the easy days of real estate are over, right? So now it's time to really become efficient, and Sam, your tool is instant to follow up with those leads, and so you're going to capture a lot more of that. And
I just want to emphasize it's really hard to get execution to get the owners to understand it. Most owners don't understand and like technology, and it is even harder for PMCs. Let me ask you guys a question. How many property management companies do you think there are in the United States alone? Marty, how many?
That's a great question. I would say there's hundreds.
4,000.
4,000, you said? Okay. Anyone else? 326,000 PMCs in America. Average employee size 2.9 employees. Average units managed 61. And they collect 8 to 12% management fees. It's $100 billion. Greystar is number 1, less than 1 million shares. Top 10 is less than 4% market share. There's another 10 million small landlords that own 30 million units self-managed. It's an insane, it's a VC roll-up wet dream. But that also means unless you have control of them and you have some kind of ownership or boardship, it becomes extremely difficult to execute because they're just not motivated and they're not the Hectors of the world, super young and smart. Yeah.
But wait a minute, wouldn't you say it's the 80-20 rule? I mean, you're not going after the little two or three.
No,
homes.
sorry.
So what
Yeah.
is the 80-20?
That's right.
Yeah, we're going out, so our model is this, we're partnered with an overseas PMC that manages 100,000 doors with great systems and franchising, doing really well. And we're buying 4 or 5 regionals, not 100%, just a simple majority. We're implementing the systems from the overseas partner, and then we're then throwing in the technologies. And essentially, the technologies that work over the next couple of years, we create what's called PM in the box, and then we're gonna start franchising this out to access a lot more PMCs.
That wasn't my question. The question is, how many are the larger ones of this 326,000?
Top 10 is about 4% market share, 5% market share. And they primarily are A-class. We're focused on workforce housing, which is even less tech.
And for us, on the medical side, the property managers, especially in like secondary markets, it's really a lot of the guys that spun off from these bigger firms that start their own companies to manage these buildings. You know, our initial underwriting, just on the first 3 buildings that we purchased, the cash on cash yields after we go in and institutionalize their property management side, on the rents we're collecting is additional 9% return for us. So the lack of sophistication, the lack of data that is being used by those smaller guys, there's a giant opportunity there for additional yield.
Gentlemen, any thoughts on data and AI? How you guys are using it in your business?
I mean, it's interesting that you said that you create 9% plus on that. We had a large property management company in Europe, never made money with it, which is kind of supports your argument maybe, but the thing there is, I'm not sure how can you really, because the margins are small anyway, and if you see what a property manager, it's a lot about leasing, and leasing is not I think it's a challenge, and what you're saying is also, you're talking to a certain crowd, which is, it's not the most open technology crowd, I would say. So it's definitely challenging. What we look into with AI is kind of, as I said, we're investing, developing student housing. And what's an interesting one is you have a lot of data anyway, but you try to figure out a little bit more about soft data. So bring in, all the data and really try to forecast what will be the rental forecast over the next years or something like that, But it's honestly, that's at the very beginning, and it's hard to kind of get proof of that. But this is really what makes it interesting, because as said, in the US, I think you have a great database anyway. In Europe, you have nothing on that, you have very much less data, much less, because there's also regulatory issues and transactions cannot be shown and all that. This kind of was a little bit started here some months ago where you have these issues as well. But I think that is something, you wanna, at the end of the day, you wanna see, and that's always my question, what does it really lead to? What does, for instance, technology bring me to? Where's my added value? What do I get out of that? And that is, I think this proof you have to work on.
Feedback?
I love it, especially from fellow owner and PMC owner as well, yeah. Again, for the third time, it's extremely hard. But I do think the industry in the US, which is probably elsewhere as well, 326,000 PMCs, averaging 2.9 employees, charging 12% for pretty subpar service, owners would say, it doesn't make sense. It's a huge impediment to capital, it's a huge impediment to housing crises, right? So somebody will figure this out. And the key, I think the timing is with AI, if you listen to Elon, AI compute and power is 10x every single year. The applications that we're using in-house and with PMC clients work. So it's just a matter of time, and I think the timing is now. A live example, one of our first clients is one of the largest PMCs in Tampa, St. Pete. We fired them 2 years ago because they were not doing a good job in leasing. And then we built this in-house product. I bumped into the gentleman, his name is Justin, at a coffee shop. And then we swapped notes. Next week, he invited my team in, became a client of the product, the leasing product, invested. And now he's so excited that he's agreed to sell his company to us, but stay on as CEO. We'll sell the majority, but he'll stay on for 30-40% to help us expand this product. So I do think it's happening, but it is. Yeah, it's
Implementation.
and I think technology will not happen unless there's ownership pushing the PMCs, and then you have some kind of influence or control ownership of the PMCs.
We're driving additional revenue.
One question for Sam. So you're in residential in this whole real page lawsuit, and now your teams or your property managers have to spend a lot more time kind of isolating where rents should be, where your new market rents are, because you can't collect the comp data that you once were able to do last year. So from a property management standpoint, how do you think you can make the team most efficient, where now they're allocating this newfound time or this time to something that they didn't have to before, but also make the other pieces efficient, like social media and marketing and all of that, because now you kind of get this double whammy of it's creating more work for the small team and you can't add additional payroll or your margins get hit.
Yeah, great question. Again, we're not trying to force tech on the team. We're just trying to sell the technology or the service as an aid. So in the case of the PM, which is using for leasing, it's basically the leads coming in and the agents qualifying it. And then instead of answering 100, they're answering 20 that's pre-qualified. We have another client in Los Angeles, who's a developer about $1 billion AUM. They have 38 condos for sale. They hired Keller Williams to do a lot of ads. So they're using our social instead of the agency, which they're getting more for less pay. But the Keller Williams agent also doesn't have time to qualify the leads. So they're using the agents to essentially qualify the leads and automate the scheduling process, right? So it's not a threat, it's more of a compliment. So there's specifics in there. A lot of things don't work, but certain things like those two that I mentioned do work. Yeah.
And also for lease comp data, eventually you're gonna be able to gather metadata as as geographically targeted for micro regions or macro regions, where you'll know it'll be randomized, anonymized data, but you're gonna know exactly how much is being spent in each individual area. So that technology is there. It's just putting a natural language model together and then filling out exactly what you're looking for specifically for that targeted region.
Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the funny thing is, whenever you talk to someone what they do, oh, I do my own real estate company, no one would say I'm starting a property manager. Everybody starts an asset manager or investor or whatever,
Right?
Of course, it's a shitty business, It's really a shitty business. Anyway, but there is definitely something, and I think it's great to figure that out,
Yeah, I actually see on that, as far as operations, because we're operators, we were in California, and Marty knows, and we left California because it just got crazy, especially during COVID. All the eviction moratoriums, you weren't collecting anything. It was absurd with all the policies, and that's why we moved to Florida. And Florida operation is completely different. As far as AI, we're very big on AI. Before I do any acquisitions, I always study the trends. We just did a few deals here in Broward County. The reason we did it was because it was near all the hospitals. And it's very important what the economic drivers are in every investment you make. And then as far as operations, you have a lot of these applicants that come in with pay stubs. If it wasn't for AI, we would not be able to verify who's a legit candidate or not. There's a lot of this. So AI is something that is very valuable to us.
So I have a question about student housing. So you guys are involved in student housing a lot? So what's your preference for student housing now? Because it seems like there's a lot of flux in the university system where a lot of universities are actually going out of business because of this birth dearth that happened. Like, I mean, I think that, like, one of my degrees is from Drexel University, was acquired like 3 universities in the last 20 years. They acquired Hahnemann University, which is a med school, they acquired a bunch of other people, and then you're seeing another Philadelphia school was also acquired. So is that something that's happening that's impacting any of the places where you look, or is that probably just like Rust Belt areas? You know, that's my first question is, you know, and then are there new opportunities because more students are coming to the South? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the key to the door, you know, I mean, we have 70 universities, approximately 60, 70 universities where we invest, nothing else.
Are those all state schools primarily, or is it like large universities?
Yeah, it's larger, I mean, if you say large, it's more than 20,000 students, you know, it depends a little bit sometimes, but it's about yeah, as you said, you know, and now it's also interesting to look into how do universities make money. For instance, we currently are doing development in Cornell, Ithaca. So the interesting thing there is that they cannot do a lot with their undergraduates. That's where they are and where they were over decades and years. So they have a 6 to 7% percentage that they can, so that applicants they get from there. But where they can make money now is with all the graduates. And this is what they are looking at. And if you see what the programs are extremely expensive. But the good thing is that many companies are paying for corporates. So this is where they're gonna really boost their business now. And here's the thing now, so you have now a different demand of undergraduates to graduates, because graduates which already worked whatever some years, they want to have a different place of living, you know, so it's a different kind of, you know, and right now there we are doing that and kind of having a little bit different approach, a little bit more luxury. Of course, it's more expensive. But yeah, I mean, that is the big thing. I mean, if you choose the wrong university, I mean, it's very hard to get where you want to get.
So are most of the universities, are they mostly in the Sun Belt or?
Yeah, we have some bells, but I mean, you see, I mean, New York State, Washington DC is interesting, you know, I mean, here Gainesville, Florida, here, of course, Miami, you know, in the,
Are most of these areas opportunity zones? Because I mean, I know when opportunity zones became in vogue, a lot of universities were included in them.
Yeah, no, we're not seeing that so much. Yeah, that's not. And then also the universities are also, kind of, you know, trying to make their own developments, you know, because they have the land and they also have financial power. And yeah, but you see, I mean, you know.
So do you build and operate, or do you?
Yeah, we build and operate.
Okay.
Yeah, build and operate. I have a partner who's operating, you know.
Right.
And then we're taking the, let's say, the full LP part, you know, because that's also kind of difficult, you know, to get into these deals, you know. Sometimes, I mean, we have deals now we're working on since 5 years. We are not there yet, you know, so it's a lot of money being spent and not getting all the approvals, and So you need specialists. It's still a pretty niche business. On the other hand, it's a very, yeah, I mean, it's a huge business in the US, you know. I mean, we became, as I said, we had in Europe, we had the largest student housing portfolio, which was at that time 42,000 units, which was pretty large for Europe. I mean, it was in Europe, it's still a niche business. Here it's a real asset.
What's your portfolio, what's the size of your portfolio here?
Right now, we have on our own balance sheet 6,000 units, student housing, I would say. And
And
we're,
do you manage and operate properties you don't know?
no, we're not an asset, man. I mean, we did that in my previous life, but we're not doing that anymore.
Do you find that it's a competitive space, the university?
I mean, it's competitive, but I mean, it's not like multi, you know, multi-family, I mean, everybody's in and everybody knows. So student housing is a more, and you have a handful of really good places. Because it's still it needs some, it needs some special expertise in to get the permits and everything, you know, and I think that's very, I think operational is not so, I mean, look, the good thing on student housing, which I really like is we can go also in the wrong direction. If the kids move in on August 18th or so, you're fully leased, hopefully, you know, and it's just the first day of the building, of the newly developed building. Let's say you have a multi-family thing, then it takes you, sometimes it takes a year or even longer to get fully leased and to get stabilized. And here in the student housing, if you pick the right thing, you're stabilized from day one, which makes it very attractive. And interestingly, also during the last 3 years, cap rates did not come up that much in student housing. They were even it was not like what you've normally seen in other sectors. It was pretty stable because the rental increase was high, you know, and it's a very stable asset class. It's a kind of a protection in the economy downturns, you know, because people are still thinking more about education when the world goes crazy.
And you don't reposition or buy old student housing?
We're thinking about that, and we're doing that. This has a lot to do with operational expertise, you know, because, and also CapEx. It's an interesting, yeah, this is kind of a multi-family value add, student housing value add play. So repositioning. And you see also now this new generation of student housing, I think it's a four-star hotel style.
I was gonna say, I mean, when I went to.
There's not much, if you see here, all the amenities, and I mean, we have golf simulators, everything.
Yeah, when I was an undergraduate, there was no air conditioning, and it was like 100 degrees outside in Philadelphia.
Maybe change that, yeah.
Now they
Now they have
have.
everything is included, I mean, super nice coffee shops and kind of brandings and I mean, but you know, this is, if the product is kind of, this is what this generation really likes, you know, it's not saying, okay, it can be really paid for, they can, but the question is where does the money come from, you know? But you see the standard is going up tremendously.
Abby, what's your strategic direction for 2025? I mean, like, what are you guys, I mean, I know you guys have your hands on a lot of different things, but what are you really looking at strategically?
The past few deals we did were a combination of distress, where when I say distress is where there were multiple rate caps, and a lot of these guys were coming in every couple months to put another million, with all the floating debt. So we came in kind of like vultures, and we said, we'll take you out of your pain. And we took over a lot of those deals. All the staff workouts, you don't really see behind the scenes. We're coming in as GPs and taking over. The other deals we've done, we just did a little over 100 million on assumable loans. I think that's a great play. He was mentioning about cap rates. Cap rates have come up a lot, and there's not a lot of players other than family office that are going after deals. All institutions out of the side. So right now we're very bullish. We've done a number of deals in the past 2 years when most people weren't. So I think right now cash is king in the multifamily sector. We're value add guys. We don't have all those fancy amenities like he does. But, you know, we're targeting, a lot of families that need housing. We're primary, secondary market, so instead of going to a brand new building, we could buy 70s, 80s, 90s product, make it, you know, look like 2024, but we're coming in slightly lower than all the new product. So, you know, that's really where there's a cash play, and then when cap rates come down, is a real opportunity to refi out. We're long-term holders. All of our capital is family, it's my family. And we, sometimes we're bringing others like family offices into our deals, but they have to be like-minded like us. You know, mostly long-term holds. And I think the next couple of years can be great, especially with, we talked about the Trump coming in. It's a very interesting topic.
Can you guys talk about how capital stack measure, you know, how important it is? Like who's on the capital stack when you get co-investors or things like that? Because you know, obviously we went through this era of a lot of syndications, especially out of Texas. I mean, and a lot of them blew up in the last couple of years because there was no big player in there to rescue, to be the rescue person, right?
Correct.
Right.
We know a number of guys that we've been taking out of their pain. A lot of these young syndicators. No, I'm serious. The way we buy, the way my family
I
buys.
guess 20-year-old guy called me up 3 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
I'm doing a syndicate, you know?
Yeah, a lot of these guys, one in particular, he bought 4,500 units within 2 years, all floating debt. And now he's underwater. He wiped out all of his LPs, and it's just irresponsible. The past few years when we did deals, everyone was doing bridge. We don't do bridge. We did all fixed financing, and we couldn't do a lot of the bigger deals because the only way to be awarded those deals were to come in and buy it at 2.5 cap and taking bridge. Otherwise, you know, we'd be able to do the deal. So we did a lot. We put a lot more cash down equity versus playing with the banks. It's a very dangerous game, and if you're not disciplined, you don't keep to your game plan, your strategy, you're gonna get hurt. Real estate is, it's very delicate. You have to be very careful how you invest. And the way we were raised from my grandfather was keep to your game plan. Never, don't compromise, and be patient. It's all timing.
Ralph, do you do co-invest as well? Do you have co-investors into your projects or?
Yeah, we're starting now, because we're seeing a great market now. This is where, so we're currently just came back from Europe yesterday, so we have a huge appetite from Europe now into the US, because they know what's going on, especially in Germany.
It's
and
a capital flight, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Safe haven.
Yeah, and I mean, the US is, even if the Europeans are very scared about Trump and about everything that's coming, they see that we will produce a lot of returns here. So there's a lot of, I expect that there's a lot of international money is focusing the US in the next 4 years.
I would agree.
Yeah. It's pretty hard. I just read something about student housing in Europe and in Germany, and it's just regulatory wise, it's such a big difference, so student housing in Germany falls under all the rental protection of normal multifamily, which is a nightmare. You cannot increase rents over a certain period, over a certain amount. So it's fully regulated, so here you have this much better, more liberal right on these things. So, and investors now understand better, because things are going really bad in Europe, and they see now, hey, what can we do? Because the money there, there's a lot of money coming in from the insurance companies, pension funds, but also families. There's a lot of larger families, German families, whatever. And they're looking for partners here, and that's the thing. They want to have partners who are understanding the culture. There's a cultural difference still, and so we have a bunch of large families. I said like-minded families who think the same, and who are interested here is to invest.
We got a couple of minutes. Do you want to just have people wrap up or are there questions from the audience?
Any questions? Or we could just go around and give our final thoughts. Yeah, just want to take it off. Final thoughts? So much to unpack.
Yeah, I think he hit it right on the head. The opportunity right now for funds or family offices that are sitting on, amounts of capital to deploy. We're seeing a lot of deal flow. I would say of our $250 million pipeline, probably 100 million of that are aging sellers that don't want to continue to deploy capital into their projects. So, buying 9s and financing at 5, I think there's gonna be a very, very, very large opportunity to do that. And then again, implementing technology to see where the puck is going, not where it is currently, I think is gonna be the story of the next decade, especially in this real estate market where, it's becoming homogenized from a information and finance standpoint. The guys that are moving ahead of the curve from the data are going to be the real winners. And whether that's through acquisitions or just strategic internal growth, I think that there's going to be some new guys that are coming to town that are going to be very successful.
Actually, before you pass that, Cody, can you share to Marty's last question? Do you guys co-invest? What does the typical deal structure look like for you guys?
We're structured as a REIT, so anybody that invests with us, they're across the portfolio, they have exposure to every single one of our assets.
That's a private REIT or public REIT?
Private, we're planning to IPO in 2026. Piper Sandler is who's gonna be taking our IPO, and we have Fund Managers Kurth is our law firm right now.
Is there still a step up on the, when you go public these days?
Yes.
Yeah, on that question, we invest as LPs and GPs with various just folks that we've done deals with in the past. I think it's great listening to the panel. There's just so many ways so many great strategies. We're close to RE strategy, value add, student housing, tech. The housing crisis in America has deteriorated in the last 10 years. So affordable housing, workforce housing, it's still a great time to help the society good, but also to make some bucks as well. So we're optimistic.
Optimistic, I love that. What about you guys? Any final thoughts? Avi, I know you mentioned the upcoming administration. What are your thoughts there? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, sure. Well, Trump's a real estate guy, so that's the good news. And
award guy.
He's gonna do what's best for his own interests, and really all the guys behind him. Everyone wants to make money, and I don't want to get too much into politics, but I do feel very good about the real estate market, as well as you can see where the 5 year to 10 years is a great indicator. It's been really, really strange with all the ups and downs. But I don't think things are going to settle till he's in office. I think there's a lot of uncertainty and of what he's going to do. But I believe that he's going to do a great job, just like he did in 2016. I think it's going to be the same thing all over again. I think he's going to take it to the next level. We're going to all do very well. God willing.
Yeah, the idea is, I think that makes a lot of sense. You have by the way, it's super hard to raise capital, and no one is saying that, but I think that's the biggest issues we all have, especially the smaller ones. So what I'm thinking is, and this is what you just talked about that. It's interesting to have a kind of niche between the institutionals and the families. We did that years ago in Europe. That was a great concept. It worked because you do not need billions to make millions. And I think that is now you see that because the pain is even worse in these let's say in investments in a 20, 30 million ranges as it is in the 50 or 100, whatever, 100 is not a typical private investment, more kind of semi-institutionals, and then plus 100, 150. it's getting more as an institutional, and then you have different things there, you know. And I think that is a good thing to do, you know, and really to dig into that and get something out of this distress and stress situation. I mean, I agree. I think the Trump administration will help us, and hopefully interest will help us as well.
Love it. Awesome, guys. Well, I'll wrap it up with saying I'm pretty positive as well on 2025 and what's coming up. I think the treasuries have been a little funky the last couple of months, to your point, Avi, and definitely killed a few of my deals. But once that settles in, with increased deal flow and the pain that's coming, I think real estate is going to do quite well over the next few years.